What's up, everybody? Welcome back once again to Axel's Analysis. As always, I'm the host, the man too cheap to make up his own name, so about to steal one, Axel Mulligan. Recording on a Sunday for the first time. I did start to record yesterday, but something came up, so I had to sort of move away and start again today. So, first time on a Sunday. And I've just got up, so if my voice sounds a bit crappy, that's the reason why. NXT this week was quite disappointing on the whole, really. There were a couple of good matches, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have enough storyline progression for my liking. So for me, if you're going to have decent matches, which generally NXT does at least have one decent match a week, you still got to move the storylines along in some way, shape or form, and it wasn't really done enough in this episode. There was one very minor sort of movement forward in the first match, but other than that, a little bit, I suppose, with the second match, and that's about it, really. The first match was Enzo and Cassady versus the Vaudevillains, and the disappointing thing about this match, aside from it being quite short, was that Enzo and Cass didn't get any mic time before the match, and on my notes here I've drawn an angry, sad face. You know, as I said before, Enzo's the best worker on the mic in NXT, hands down. And Cassady's no slouch himself. You know, he's really improved over the last 6 months or so. But sadly, it's one of those things that, for whatever reason, they didn't give him the mic. I don't know why. I've never seen Enzo have a match and not have the mic while he's doing his entrance, even on his debut. He cut a little promo, and it was just a bit. Seemed a bit flat without it, that was all. And the crowd, as much as they popped when Enzo and Cass came out, there was nothing for them to get behind. Like I said before, the NXT crowds are a bit like the NXT crowds with Enzo and Cass are a bit like how the Attitude Era crowds were with the Outlaws back in 98 and 99. That's just a shame, that was all. Quick match. The Legionnaires came out, caused a distraction. They were sort of on the stage, their music went off. Cass got distracted and Gotch rolled him up and he hooked the tights, which is a bit of a heel move. I know obviously you do see baby faces doing it, but it's predominantly a heel move to do that. And obviously the Vaudevillains have been coming across as faces since their debut, so just wondering if they're sort of going in a different direction with them without sort of properly explaining it. But anyway, there was a little stare down after the match between Enzo and Cassady from the ring, and then with Sylvester Lefort and Marcus Louis from the stage. But that's like one of the two little progressions that the show had, really. Straight into the second match. CJ Parker and Xavier Woods. I still absolutely love CJ's entrance music. It's probably the best in the WWE right now. Some people disagree, some people might agree, but that's just my opinion. I've always been a big fan of Bray Wyatt's Broken Out in Love by Mark Crozier and the Rels, but On the Streets by the LA Drugs is an absolutely fantastic song. And as I say, I think it's probably my favourite in the WWE right now. The one impressive part about this match was Woods was on the outside of the ring. Parker went over to him to hit him with a kick, and what he did was he sort of hit him with Parker went over to get Woods, and Woods hit him in the side of the face with a kick. Parker sort of stumbled and staggered around a bit, and Woods sort of put one foot inside the ring through the middle rope. And he had one perched on the apron, and he springboarded himself off of the middle rope from his ass, and he hit a tornado DDT. And I just thought that was really cool. You know, you don't really get to see Xavier do a lot in the ring, but when he's doing things like that, you know, and if he has got more like that in his repertoire, why aren't they sort of showcasing it more? You know, I mean, I watched Superstars for the first time in I don't know how long this week, and he's out there in R-Truth's corner, where, you know, why not? Like, R-Truth was against Ryback. Why not just have Ryback versus Woods and R-Truth? I didn't quite understand it. I was watching it with my housemate as well, and he's not a wrestling fan, but he said, well, why aren't you tagging in his partner? And I'm like, it's not a tag team match. And it actually kind of pissed me off that it wasn't a tag team match. So, as I said, it probably should have been. And, you know, I like Woods from what I've seen of him. He can move around in the ring, definitely. And, you know, he's got a lot of charisma about him as well. And if Shugs is listening from the Sunday segue, he's going to completely want to fucking kill me, I would have thought, because he doesn't like Xavier Woods. But each to their own. Parker won with a roll up, and what pissed me off here was that 2 matches in a row without anything in between, just a little like battleground promo. 2 matches in a row ended with a roll up, and it kind of reminded me of Raw a couple of weeks ago, where the first 3 matches ended up in, I think they were all like disqualification finishes. And I just think you need to spread it out a bit. If you can have like a couple of DQ finishes or a couple of roll up finishes, you need it to be like, if you're having it in the first match, you need it to have the same again in the 3rd match or the 4th match. You've got to have something in between to separate it, because it's just like, well, I've just seen this. Why am I seeing it again straight away? Just put it later on down the card. But anyway, doesn't look as though the feud's going to be over. I'm expecting that we'll get something in the next couple of weeks between the two again. Whether it's like a tag team match, which will build up to another singles match, I don't know. But I'm expecting to see another match between the two somewhere down the line, because I don't think the feud's finished. Next part of the show, Devin Taylor's interview with Sami Zayn. Devin asked Sami about Tyson Kidd, and he basically said that since he's come down to NXT, you know, we're seeing the true colours of Tyson Kidd more and more week by week. He said that if he had the chance to wrestle Tyson a couple of months ago, he would have jumped at the chance. But now it's just about embarrassing him, because of obviously what he's been putting Natalya through, what he's been doing, like brainwashing Justin Gabriel, the way he treated Neville, the way he's treated Zayn. But he said no, it's about embarrassing him, and it was a decent little promo, to be honest with you. But I think these little interviews need to be maybe a little bit longer, because on the main roster you get a bit more substance with them. Not always, but generally. But on NXT you don't really get that, because I think it's probably to do with the time constraints of the show. You don't really get the longer backstage interviews, but hey ho, one of those things. The next match, Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss, and I think it's fair to say that Sasha took Alexa to school. Alexa probably had about 3 or 4 moves in the entire match, and Sasha just beat the piss out of her, basically. She was brilliant, and I've been banging on for a long time about how good Sasha Banks is, and in my opinion she's the best women's wrestler in NXT. Obviously I'm going to exclude Natalya from that, because she's a main roster diva. But no, it's fair to say that Sasha took her to school, definitely. The highlight of it was the end of the match, actually. Sasha hit a backstabber. She rolled through and locked in a crossface, which I think is called the boss lock. And Alexa tapped out like a little schoolgirl, basically, little wimp. And to be fair, she did have it fucking wrenched in quite tight, so can't blame Alexa for tapping out, really. But it's just further evidence how good Sasha Banks is, really, this match. You know, she's only 22 years old. The future's so bright for her, the sky's the limit. And if she can break through onto that main roster, as I said before, hopefully within the next year or so, she's just got so much potential. And if she doesn't go off to pursue a modelling career or singing career or any other kind of career, you're looking at a surefire future Hall of Famer, unless WWE completely fuck this girl up. But she's got all the potential and all the talent in the world. You know, they've made mistakes when they've elevated Paige to the main roster, so you can't make those sort of mistakes with Sasha, because she's very, very talented. You can't make the same mistake twice. And Emma as well, obviously she's been booked horrendously. But I'd like to see her, Sasha, moved up there and maybe like sort of start off slow, nice slow burn, kind of like with kind of like how they did it with Trish years ago. Obviously, she didn't wrestle for however long it was. She was a manager of TNA, Tess and Albert. And then look at the career that she had. You know, obviously, I'd rather Sasha was wrestling, but don't push her into the main event too soon. As far as the Divas are concerned, don't push her too far too soon, because then once she gets there, it's like, well, what now? Because that's where Paige is going to be in a few months' time when her feud with AJ's over. It's like, well, what are you doing with Paige now? She's not going to be on the show, is she? And that's just how the Divas division is. Next match of the night, the next interview of the night was Devin with Tyson Kidd. She asked him about last week when Natalya got hurt, when she got knocked off the apron, and Tyson says that they should be talking about his win over Sami Zayn, rather than the fact that Natalya got hurt, because he says Natalya is a former Divas champion, she can handle herself in the ring, and accidents happen. But what's going to happen to Sami Zayn later in the show isn't going to be an accident. And this is one of those things where I'd rather there was a bit more substance, because I'd like to know how he's going to make it not look like an accident. Not like specific details, but how, sort of just give us little clues as to how he's going to dismantle Sami Zayn. I've said it before about Tyson, you know, his mic work's improved, but it's just, his substance just isn't there. And I know obviously all these things are scripted, and I don't know how far outside of those scripts the wrestlers can go. But I'd just like to see a bit more substance from Tyson, that's all. You know, you struggle to believe what he's saying when he's not telling you more precisely what he's doing. But I like Tyson. I don't think anybody dislikes Tyson as a wrestler. You know, I just like to see a bit more from him on the promos, that's all. The next match was Adam Rose versus Jason Jordan. Jordan cut a little promo before the match saying that Ty Dillinger, obviously his tag team partner, is injured, and the last time that he was apparently seen was with the Rosebuds, so he's going to find out, you know, how he become injured by the Rosebuds, or from partying with the Rosebuds. And this is the part where I was on about with Regal. You know, he was great here because he was trying to get Tom Phillips to get up and dance, and I called the show this week. A quote from Regal, which he said to Tom Phillips, was, "Get yourself jiggy, fella." And I just laughed. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, I'd seen the show a couple of times. First time just to watch it. The second time to sort of take the notes. And both times I just laughed hysterically. I thought it was brilliant because, and the British fans who watch the show, they'll understand this more with what I'm going to say now than perhaps any other nationality fans that are listening. The way that Regal speaks is kind of like the Queen's English, where he's sort of well spoken, well presented with his voice and his accent. And for him to turn around and say, "Get yourself jiggy, fella," isn't really something that you'd expect to hear from somebody who speaks with the Queen's tongue, the Queen's English. And it just made me laugh. It was hilarious. It really was. Typical Adam Rose match, though. It was good fun. You know, he did a lot of his usual theatrics, you know, rubbing his ass in his face and sort of hanging on to Jordan like he was like being carried into a hotel room as the blushing bride. And he's brilliant. I love it. And how Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn can sour on it already when they booked him horrendously on the main roster, I'll never know. All I got to say to you two, Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn, if you're listening, don't be lemons, be rosebuds. And actually book the guy properly, because he's just been booked so terribly. Just, nah. Put him back down in NXT. The NXT fans appreciate him. I appreciate him down there, but I don't appreciate what you've done with him on the main roster. Even that'll bring back the Leo Kruger again. Rose won with a party foul, as you'd expect. But yeah, I just like to see more from it on the main roster of how he's being booked. As much as he had the vignettes and the promos beforehand, and they didn't. When he got up there, it was like he was fighting against Jack Swagger, and there was no real need for him to fight against Jack Swagger. You know, Jack's obviously the real American, and they're trying to portray Adam Rose. First he was an Englishman. I don't know where the fuck he's hailing from now, because they just keep changing it. But he wasn't against America, so I don't understand why they put him against Jack Swagger. It just didn't make any sense. Obviously now the feud with Rusev that Swagger's got does make a lot of sense, but Adam Rose against Jack Swagger just didn't make a lot of sense. I think it was just an excuse to rush him up there, and Swagger didn't have anything to do at the time. But the guy right. Maybe put him in like a tag team with Fandango or something like that. Just see where it takes him. You know, Fandango could easily work as a babyface with his gimmick. It's sort of, the mannerisms are quite similar to Adam Rose. Just put them together as a tag team. You're bolstering your division. They'll probably make him the jobber tag team, but as long as he's doing something up there that's sort of meaningful, whether he's putting people over or if he's actually making waves up there, I don't care really. I just like seeing him wrestle. He's a good worker. Same as Fandango, he's a good worker as well. Third and final Devin Taylor interview of the night was with Kalisto, and Devin asked Kalisto about his recent matches. You know, came close to winning the tag titles, and he came close to beating Tyler Breeze, the #1 contender. But Kalisto says he'd rather talk about his future wins rather than his past losses, which fair enough. And as he says that, the Vaudevillains come in, and it was a proper Vaudevillains promo really, because they put the screen into black and white. The audio was behind the video, and English and Gotch didn't say anything. Gotch is sort of like holding himself out, like his arms out by his side, as if to say, like to portray a fat person. And Kalisto's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Or what are you trying to like imply? And Aiden English holds up a sign saying, "Where is your partner?" And Kalisto says that him and Locale have gone their separate ways. They parted ways. But he'll find a new partner to face him next week. That was after Gotch sort of like patted him on the head like he was a child who just sort of like had their favourite toy broken or something like that. But what impressed me about Kalisto was that he went from, he did like a little Spanish bit, and he went to English. Obviously he's Mexican, so he's going to be able to speak Spanish. But what impressed me was a very Rey Mysterio-like promo, and I've said it before, and a lot of people have said it as well, that this guy will be the next Rey Mysterio. How long that's going to take, I'm not sure. He's 27 years old, so he's got time on his side. But they need to, when he goes up to the main roster, which apparently I read a couple of months ago, and I've also mentioned on here before, it's going to be sooner rather than later. But they've got to promote him like how Rey Mysterio was promoted. You know, Rey Mysterio went into a feud with Kurt Angle when he first came up into the WWE in 2002. They had a brilliant match at SummerSlam. Then he sort of floated up and down the card a little bit, but still remaining relevant. He went to become he went to the final of the tag team tournament at No Mercy in 2002, and he had the match of the year as voted by PWI. Yeah, the match of the year was him and Edge versus Angle and Benoit, and the match was phenomenal. And then after that, he just sort of floated around like the tag division and the cruiserweight division, and all the while he's remaining relevant the whole time. And you've got to do something similar with Kalisto. I think obviously there's no cruiserweight division for it, but if you can, like, I don't know, if they don't unify the US and the IC titles, have him like fighting for the US title, and then in the tag division, like you can put him in a tag team with Hunakara. And that's what I'm expecting they're going to partner him with next week, because he said he's going to find a partner to face the Vaudevillains next week. Have him as a tag team with Hunakara. Not necessarily have him win the belts, but make him relevant. And then you can move him up and down all you want. Rey Mysterio 2006, right, it was down to circumstance of Eddie Guerrero's death. If Eddie hadn't died, Rey Mysterio probably wouldn't have been a world champion. But I think Kalisto could easily be the modern day Rey Mysterio. And if he can build the legacy that Mysterio's got, then the guy's in for a hell of a career. He really is. But he just, as I say, he just needs that right book, and he needs to be promoted properly. He needs to come in, make a big impact like Rey did. Rey's first thing that he ever did on SmackDown was he jumped down off the top of a cage onto 2 or 3 guys. How can you make a bigger impact than that? You can't really, can you? As a guy of Mysterio's size and stature, Kalisto can do something similar. Not necessarily you don't have to book him identically, but if he can do something similar, the sky's the limit for him as well. I said it about Sasha Banks just now, but the sky's going to be the limit for Kalisto. The main event of the night, Sami Zayn versus Tyson Kidd, who had Natalya in his corner. It was a really good back and forth match. Both men got their spots in. What impressed me the most is I can't remember seeing anybody counter it before, but Tyson twice countered the Blue Thunderbomb. Never seen it done before. So fair play to Tyson, because hell of a wrestler, and again he proved why he's one of the most underrated guys by the WWE. And Sami proved on the flip side of that why he's like one of the most valued guys in NXT and why he's got such a big future ahead of him. He showed why people are so big on him, like not necessarily in the WWE. I know they are big on him in the WWE, but like the fans as well. The fans are huge on Sami Zayn. Fans love him. Sami won the match with the Koji clutch. He hit reverse STO and he just sort of straight into the Koji clutch, and Tyson tapped out pretty much straight away. Again, not something I expect to be over anytime soon. Maybe we'll see a match with them at the between the two at the next live special or pay-per-view or whatever you want to call it for NXT. But if these two can have matches like this, like on the main roster, I mean, the sooner Tyson Kidd gets called back up, the better. But I mean, I'm enjoying what he's doing in NXT. But I find this a bit of an insult to him. The guy's been a tag team champion on the main roster. He's had a WrestleMania moment. Now he's finding himself back down in NXT. Same with Justin Gabriel. Justin Gabriel made huge waves when he made his debut on the main roster, obviously as part of the Nexus. And I just find it disappointing to see that they're both sort of struggling on the main roster. Now they're back down in NXT. It's just, it's not nice to see really, because they're two of the more talented guys in the WWE. Tyson Kidd, I'd put him in the top 10 wrestlers. Gabriel, probably not too far behind. And I just don't understand how they've never made it. They formed a good tag team before. They're back together now, obviously on NXT. But I think both guys have got incredible talent, and how they've not made it yet. But they're lucky they're given a second chance, because some people don't get that. Some people are just released just like that, And it'd be good to see them back up there eventually, and hopefully sort of tag team champions maybe. Who knows? But it'd be good to see. Overall rating of the show, I've given it the lowest rating that it's ever been. Oh, I will actually talk about Tom Phillips. I forgot to mention Tom Phillips in that main event. He called it so brilliantly. He didn't quite have the JR passion, but he had the right passion for the right environment for the match. And the way he did it was just fantastic. And I called it on Twitter, get this guy on SmackDown, honestly, because nobody watches Superstars. Hardly anybody watches main event. People are watching NXT. This guy isn't getting the publicity that he needs and probably deserves. Get him on SmackDown. He's the best play-by-play guy that they've got. I rate him much higher than I rate Michael Cole. I think a few people will agree with that. But who knows? Who knows when they're going to get him up there? He deserves it, but we'll see when he gets up there. Overall rating of the show, giving it 5.5, and it would have been a 5 if that last match hadn't been so good. And it's just because the direction the show went, it didn't really go anywhere. There's no real storyline progression other than the fact that we've got the feud sort of further in between the Legionnaires and Cassady and Enzo. Woods and Parker looks like they're probably going to have another match somewhere. And that's pretty much it, really. There was no obvious progression other than those two, and the fact that we've got a tag team match made for next week. Whoopie-doo. And the fact that we had 2 cheap wins in the first 2 matches didn't do a lot for me, but there were 2 awesome submission finishes, and if you can find it anywhere just for that, the finish of the Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss match, go and find it, because it was phenomenal. Many in-ring technicians would have been proud of that, and as I said, Sasha's a phenomenal worker. So anyway, next week we've got the Vaudevillains versus Kalisto and the mystery partner. I'm expecting it to be Hunakara. And we've also got an NXT women's title match between Charlotte and Summer Rae, which was promoted a couple of weeks ago. I'm expecting Sasha to get involved in that somehow, but we'll see when the time comes. This week's news. We had some tapings on Thursday night, so 3 days ago. I'll get to that in a minute, but there was only 3 weeks worth of tapings. You had, I'm guessing it's to fill in, like the 4th week would be like their pay-per-view live event or whatever. And we must still have a couple of weeks to run on the current set that we're going through at the moment. So see what they do with that. Bray Wyatt cut a babyface promo after the tapings. He basically came out and thanked the NXT fans for making him who he's become today. And he also posed for pictures and he signed autographs. It was good of him to sort of have him come out and sort of thank the fans, but I'm not too keen when wrestlers break character. I mean, there is an interview floating around with Bray at the moment. You find it on dirt sheets and stuff, but I'm not too keen on when guys like break character, and it just doesn't. It loses the reality of wrestling, like kayfabe wise. And Bray's one of those characters. I don't think you can really break his character, because it'd make him, when you know that he's broken character, it just makes it feel a bit weak. But if you can find this interview that I was talking about, you find it on the dirt sheets or the news sites or whatever. It is a really good read. He sort of semi-stays in character and then sort of goes off character and then goes back into character. It's a really good read, so I do urge anybody who's not read it to have a look at it. I really enjoyed it. This week's birthdays. We had July the 14th, which was Monday. Bully Ray / Bubba Ray Dudley, to us WWE and ECW fans, turned 43. July the 15th, Heath Slater 31, Jesse Ventura 63, Emil Mascara 72. July 16th, Bobby Lashley 38 and Mike Knox 36. July 17th, Mojo fucking Rawley turned 28. July the 18th, Carlos Colon 66, Al Snow 51, Joey Mercury 35. July the 19th, Tony Mamaluke turned 37 and Jinder Mahal turned 28. July the 20th, Adam Rose. So today, Adam Rose is 35 and Bob Orton Sr. would have been 85, but get to Bob Orton Sr. again in a moment because he features in this week's in wrestling history. On to this week in history. July the 14th, Dude Love and Stone Cold defeated Owen Hart and the British Bulldog to become the World Tag Team Champions. That was in 1997, I believe. I didn't write the year down, but I believe it was 97. On an episode of Raw. July the 15th, Bob Orton Sr., as I mentioned just now, he passed away in 2006 of heart failure. July the 16th, Terry Gordy, famous for the Fabulous Freebirds, died in 2001. He had a blood clot. And July the 17th, another death, unfortunately, or murder, I'm going to call this, because I haven't got it all written down in front of me here, but with a basic background knowledge of the story, I don't remember who was involved exactly, but Bruiser Brody, he was killed. 1988, he was killed. I don't care what anybody says. Anybody who testified against anybody who was involved, he was killed. You can find it in various places on the internet if you don't know the background of it, and I'm not going to give it to you now because, as I said, I don't have it here in front of me, so I don't want to give false information on it, but he was killed. End of. Somebody holding a knife, blood hanging off the knife, and he's got a wound in him. How's that not murder? The Great Khali, July the 17th again. Probably one of the worst moments in recent history in the WWE. The Great Khali won a battle royal to become the World Heavyweight Champion. And never been a Khali fan. Never will be a Khali fan. And why he became World Champion is beyond me. That was an episode of SmackDown in 2007. I think that was one of the times when Edge got injured and vacated the title. But I will say though that Khali, I think it was just after he lost the title to Batista, he sort of had his mandatory rematch clause, and he had it inside of the Punjabi prison. That was against Batista, obviously, and I really enjoyed that match. I thought it was phenomenal. It's the only good match that Khali's ever had. So I think that was No Mercy 2007. But I really enjoyed it. I thought that was a really good match. June the 18th. This is one that I didn't know anything about, actually. All these other things I did know about. But Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard defeated Demolition, and it was to end their record World Tag Team title run, or WWF Tag Team title run as it was at the time. That was July the 18th in 1989. It was an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event. But I didn't actually know that Anderson and Blanchard had become World Tag Team Champions before, at least in the WWE. So it's a nice little bit of education for myself. That's the end of this week in wrestling history. So as always, remember to follow me on Twitter at Axel Mulligan. Look out for the Facebook page. Just type Axel's Analysis into the search bar and you'll be able to find me there. I've only got 25 likes still. Please, please, please like my page. That's my awful begging. And I'm probably not going to do that again because it makes me feel like a dick. It makes me sound like a dick as well. But yeah, just give the Facebook page a follow. Look out for the shows on Mixcloud, Podomatic and YouTube. I'll always send out the YouTube link to people on Twitter. I'll always post the Podomatic and Mixcloud links as well on there. Shout outs for this week, as always, Tim Vicious at Tim Vicious and at Tim_Vicious on Twitter. Look out for his YouTube show as well, Vicious Rants. Sunday Segway at Sunday Segway. Kinney and Shugs, as always, do a great podcast each Sunday. I'm going to be on there next week for my Beat the Clock match with Michael Cook. You can find them on iTunes and don't forget to rate them on there. YouTube, Podomatic, Stitcher Radio, and I believe there's somewhere else, but I keep meaning to ask Kinney. So I'm going to see him next Saturday actually. So I'll ask him then, and I'll make sure I don't forget. James Powers at James Powers 33. Make sure you look out for James's Wrestling Ramble on YouTube, Mixcloud and Podomatic. Great show. I've been on there a couple of times myself. Really good fun. Pro Wrestling Smart Talk at PW Smart Talk. Wrestling Rambles at Wrestling Rambles. Make sure you check out WrestlingRambles.com. You've got some great blogs over there. They've asked me to write for them again. Unfortunately, at the moment, I'm just not looking to write. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing with these shows. But thanks for the opportunity. If anyone's listening, thanks for asking me. It's quite an honour when people actually respect your opinion of wrestling. I've always considered myself just to be like a casual fan, not really have much of an opinion until I started talking to a few of these guys, and I think, well, no, I must have some sort of knowledge about me. So, no, thanks for the offer. But if anything comes to mind that I could write about, and if I've got the desire to do it, I'll be in touch. But no, thanks for the offer anyway. Last but not least, Tony Walker at Tony_Walker. Make sure you look out for the Wrestling Matters podcast, as well as the Wrestling Matters podcast Twitter page, which is at WM Podcast. You can find that on iTunes. Make sure you rate it on there. Stitcher Radio, Podomatic, and YouTube. Tony did give me a list of places where he does the show. He sent me a message on Twitter, and I've just completely forgotten. So if there is anywhere else, Tony, just let me know. I did have it saved on my phone, but I've accidentally deleted the message. So if there is anywhere else, Tony, just let me know, and I'll make sure it's on there for next week. And I'm sorry for potentially missing anything out for you. But that's the end of the show. As always, thanks for listening. Make sure you go back and listen to all the other episodes, and I'll see you again next week.